He is the host of the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. You can follow him on social media at Ross Tucker NFL. And he is courtesy of futurefans.com, Ross Tucker now on the fan hotline. Ross, welcome to the show, buddy.
Nick, what's up, man? How are you?
I'm doing all right here. I'm even better with Kenny Pickett getting picked off at practice. It just feels right. Like that feels like good, solid momentum for Nick Wilson because he's the one person I don't want winning this job.
Well, first of all, you were patting yourself on the back about the wordplay, but I mean, the guy's last name is Pickett, so I feel like you could have done a better job of actually incorporating the interception into his last name. You're like, oh, Kenny Pickett got picked, ha, ha, ha. Like, there's a better way to go about that.
Show it to me right now, big boy.
Grant Delpit proved he could pick it off of Kenny, but
I think mine was better. JP?
No.
Yeah, Nick's he says no.
Ross, who is your favorite in the clubhouse to start week 1 for the Cleveland Browns?
Ooh, that's such a great question. My favorite meaning most likely or who I would want to see? Most likely, right?
Sure.
I think they are going to keep 4 quarterbacks potentially. And I think, man, I'm going to say they give Joe 3 or 4 games, and then they go to Kenny for 3 or 4 games, and then either Dylan Gabriel or Shador for 3 or 4 games, and then the other one. I think we might have – that'd be good for you guys to look up. How many teams have had 4 quarterbacks start 4 or more games? I think there's a real possibility that the Browns can set some records here this year.
All right, so you answered the most likely. Now answer who's your most favorite. Like, who are you rooting for to win this job?
Well, I'm in the media, so probably Shador Sanders, just because it would be the most interesting and entertaining. I'm a big Joe Flacco guy. I would love to I like when old guys do well, right? So it kind of makes me feel better about myself. So I would love to see Flacco come out there and sling it around and have success again. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I would love that. Kenny Pickett and Dylan Gabriel don't really do much for me. Although if Dylan Gabriel played pretty well and Shador Sanders was just standing there on the sideline, there'd be sort of some unintentional comedy there too.
Ross Tucker on the fan hotline here with Nick and Jonathan breaking down all things Cleveland Browns. The Browns over-under by Vegas is set at 5.5. Do you think that number is too high, too low, or just right?
I think it's just right. And I think it's just right because of the approach that they've taken this offseason. You know, and in particular, the Travis Hunter trade. You know, when you trade down and you pick up a first-round pick the following year, right or wrong, you're sort of signaling to everyone out there that this is not a season in which you're all in. And I'm fine with that, and I thought it was a good decision by the Browns. I'm glad they made that trade, but that's what they're saying, right? I mean, I think what they're saying is, I think that they are smart enough to realize they're not as good as Baltimore, and they know that. And they probably aren't as good as Pittsburgh or Cincinnati either, especially because of Joe Burrow and those receivers. And so they want to make sure that they have, in my mind, they have 3 opportunities to identify a surprise future starter, and that's Pickett, Gabriel, and Shador. Obviously, Flacco's not the guy, but they've got kind of 3 lottery tickets, if you will. They got Pickett for hardly anything, Gabriel 3rd-round pick, Shador 5th-round pick. I truly believe that they're going to give all 3 of those guys a chance. They're going to see if any of those lottery tickets can cash in. And then if not, they're going to use a big ticket item on a first-round pick quarterback next year. And so because of that, because of what the trade signifies, and because of the fact that I think they're going to start multiple young quarterbacks this year, I would probably lean under. I mean, I think the number is just right. It's really going to be up to them in terms of how long they put Flacco or Kenny in there before they go to a rookie. But if you're really looking at a 17-game season, yeah, I don't think they'll win 7 games. I mean, I think they'll win between 4 to 6, and probably more likely 4 and 5 than it would be 6 or 7.
If you took quarterback out of this equation, how much talent do you think is actually on this team?
Good question, JP. I looked at that before I came on. I think they're average. I mean, I think they have some really good players. Obviously, Myles Garrett. You know, I don't know if the offensive line is what it's been. You know, 3 and 4 and maybe even 2 years ago. Obviously, they took a step back last year, I thought, for multiple reasons. And, you know, I think Mason Graham is absolutely critical to their success on that side of the ball to get some type of interior pass rush. But I would say probably average. You know, you're not looking at their running backs and saying, wow. I mean, the guy that I think they want to be their running back isn't signed because of an off-the-field issue. You know, the receivers are in the bottom quarter of the league, probably at best. And obviously we know about the quarterback situation. But I would say their overall roster is probably average. But what we've seen is that there's probably a lot of overall rosters that are average. And if you have a below average quarterback, then you're a below average team. If you have an above average quarterback, you're an above average team, because most of the teams have rosters that are about the league average.
Ross, we've had a few conversations about this, but you mentioned the Quinshon Judkins situation. Last year was the Mike Hall Jr. situation, domestic violence. The year before that, it was Perion Winfrey, who was taken in the 4th round when he was a 2nd-round talent with multiple issues and ended up being cut because of them off the field. They clearly traded for Deshaun Watson, and this does come back to how much of this can be, you know, maybe put on the plate of Andrew Berry, who spent a lot of his press conference today attesting to how much work they've done on prospects and how much work they try to do to educate players on issues like domestic violence.
Well, so you'd have to refresh my memory on the timing for Winfrey and Hall. Were all of those incidents, Nick, after they were drafted, or were any of them before they were drafted and the team selected them anyway?
So Winfrey did not have any. He didn't have any police things, but he did fall because of character concerns as a general statement. And same with Mike Hall, but we don't have like specific arrests to point to.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a tough thing to know in terms of, like, for all we know, right? Judkins was exemplary at Ole Miss and Ohio State, and is a great character kid, and we'll find out what happened with this incident, right? We don't know that. You know, I saw where the Buffalo Bills have come out, you know, there's a lawsuit against their 1st-round pick, Maxwell Hairston, and basically the Bills GM, Brandon Beane, came out and said that the accuser is lying, and that it didn't happen, and that they're not worried about it at all, which I thought was an interesting, you know, tactic to take. But obviously they believe that, or they wouldn't say that publicly. I do think that, you know, I can't remember the expression right now, but if it happens once, that's one thing. If it happens twice, okay. When it starts to be 3 or more, and I'm not going to put Shedeur Sanders' speeding tickets in the same category as these other guys, but it still speaks to his decision-making and, you know, whatever he is doing at night that he thinks it's a good idea to drive that fast, probably not a good look. You know, it's probably not a good look for Cleveland, especially after you make that trade for Deshaun Watson and you give him that much money after we all know what the transgressions were, to then have several draft choices have issues, I think says something about something. I would also tell you that there were a lot of teams willing to trade for Deshaun Watson and give him a ton of money. So let's not just put that all on the Browns, because they're the ones that got him. And then I'd also say, in particular with Shedeur, but with all those players, there are teams that have financial backgrounds that look at those players as distressed assets, right? This guy would have gone higher had he not had these issues. He might have these issues, but at a lower round pick, at a third round pick or a fourth or fifth round pick, we are getting value here. It's worth it to take a chance on him. It might blow up in our face, but we're going to continue to make selections and decisions for this organization that we think represent value when we do them. And certainly that's the reason why they took Shedeur Sanders. I think everybody realizes that.
Ross, Mary Kay Cabot was on the station earlier today, and she said the Browns need to have their starter figured out after the second preseason game. Based off of your experience, and I just, when I think of you, I think of like you doing all those preseason games in all the different spots, and obviously with the Eagles, but just doing them basically everywhere, in my opinion. I don't know why I associate you with preseason football the way I do, but I do. What is the Browns' timeline? What should it be?
Well, by the way, when the Browns play the Eagles, I'll probably go to both those joint practices.
Mm-hmm.
So Nick will be texting me like a madman to try to get me on, but I might just not come on just to try to anger him, even though he knows I'll be at those practices.
That's hateful.
But Saturday, when they play the Browns at 1, that game's going to be televised live on NFL Network, and it'll be our feed. It won't be the Browns feed. I mean, obviously, the people in Cleveland will be able to get the Browns feed, but it'll be our feed. So I'm looking forward to watching them. You know, JP, there's two ways to go about it. There's pick a guy after the second preseason game so that you can treat the third preseason week like it's a regular season week. He can get those reps, yada, 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 and be ready. There are also people, your guy, Eric Mangini, he's a big Jedi mind trick guy where, you know, we're not going to announce who the starter is until the first game, but then, you know, some rookie tells his agent, you know, who's getting all the reps, and then the agent leaks it to Schefter, and we all know anyway, but that always cracks me up. So there's two different routes that the Browns could go. I would seem to think that they're probably going to announce who it is after that second preseason game. I guess I feel like whatever value you get in trying to keep it somewhat secretive for that first game doesn't really offset the message you're sending, which is that you don't really know who your guy is and they're all basically the same. And I've never really bought into that being enough value, especially, you know, when you can bench that guy in the first game anyway, if he's really bad.
Ross, what does going under on 5.5 wins mean for Barry and Stefanski after a 3-14 season last year?
Well, I would hope it means they get another year and a chance to draft a quarterback in the first round. Otherwise, I would have to highly question their decision-making to make that trade that they did. I mean, you know, if they felt like they needed to win a certain amount of games this year to keep their jobs, why would you make that trade that they did to trade, you know, down for next year's first? Are you feathering the nest for the next GM? You know, are you setting up the next GM and the next head coach, which evidently, by the way, is Nick Saban and Arch Manning? Like, are you setting those guys up for success? That doesn't make any sense. So I'd like to think that Andrew Berry and Stefanski had long conversations with Haslam and DePodesta before they made those decisions. But we've seen how that goes, right? I can remember when Sashi was there with the Browns, and I asked him on my show, I said, you know, Sashi, because he was making decisions that were clearly long-term focused, and he got fired after a year, you know? Like the owner didn't really care that he was taking a longer term view. He didn't like the direction and he made a change. That's one reason why I give Haslam a lot of credit, actually. He has not been as impetuous. I believe Stefanski's a really good coach, and he's got, the 2 Coach of the Year awards to prove it. And I also think Andrew Berry's a much better general manager than he gets credit for. They made one huge swing, and it failed miserably. And then after that, you have to look at the other moves individually and decide whether or not you think if you get somebody else that they're better. I've never subscribed to this idea of, okay, well, we had a couple bad years in a row. Let's get rid of this guy and just get anybody else. I mean, some of these guys that these other teams are getting as GMs, this Muji guy with the Jets, or the guy that the Gladstone, I think, that the Jags hired. Who's to say that these guys are any good, right? Like, that's the problem with hiring GMs from these other teams that have maybe had success. They have no track record. So when they meet with you, every move that the team they're on made that was good, that was them. Every move that their team that were on was bad, that wasn't them. And I think these owners buy it, because that's why no GMs hardly ever get a second chance, because once you are a GM, we can actually see the moves that you've made, positive and negative. I think it's really stupid, to be honest with you. I think there'd be a lot of value in hiring a GM for a second stint. I think they'd be significantly better at it, like we all would be, the second chance we get an opportunity after making some mistakes our first time.
Ross, we have about 45 seconds here, buddy. What can you tell us about futurefans.com?
Well, I'll tell you that it's crack the code and how to get your kids to actually watch football with you. Everybody listening right now knows how hard it is to get your kids to sit there and watch the Browns. It's not like it used to be with our dads. Like, they want to be on their iPad. They don't want to sit there and watch the whole game. Think about how valuable it would be to you to just have your 6-year-old, your 8-year-old, whatever, sit there and watch the Browns and live and die with this team, right or wrong, for years. For $60, and actually right now they have a 20% discount. You can go to futurefans.com and see how these guys have cracked the code to get your niece, your nephew, your kids, your grandkids to understand football and to want to sit there and watch it with you. It's like the gift that keeps on giving. Futurefans.com. Nick, go there right now. I heard through the grapevine that your kids, even though you're a radio host, they don't know enough about football. Futurefans.com.
Ross, excellent stuff, buddy. I'll hit you up in a couple weeks when you're at camp.
Sounds great. See you guys.